Today on Gun Talk Nation, we've got Tom Gresham in the hot seat. We're talking about big money shooting tournaments, new guns, and some weird news in the world of guns. Hey, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Vortex Optics, Savage Arms, and GunDealio. Trigger the deals. So today we thought we'd cover a lot of ground. We're bringing in Tom Gresham. Welcome back.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on. We always like to bring you in and kind of help redirect the ship, keep us on track, so to speak.
Well, there's so much going on, and we're trying to cover it all on the radio, but you can't cover it all. There's so much happening all the time.
There's so much happening. So we're probably this episode, if you're listening to it, will be a little bit schizophrenic. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about.
It will not be schizophrenic. Yes, it will. No, it won't. Okay,
winning.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, winning $150,000 worth of beef jerky. No, not really, but kind of. We're going to talk about some new guns, and we're going to talk about some interesting stories in the news. So, Tom, I just thought I'd start off here because when I saw this story, I was like, wow, okay. It's a sporting clays tournament, and the world of competition shooting is interesting because you have things that come and go and ebb and flow, and PRS is popular. And then it used to be Cowboy Action was popular. But I mean, we've had shooting competitions in the Olympics for how long?
Right. I mean, decades, 100 years.
Centuries. Yeah, something like that.
Right. Exactly.
But one of the things that's interesting, this is the story I saw. So, Jack Links is sponsoring a sporting clays tournament. The Jack Links Cup sporting clays tournament is happening at the Quail Creek Sporting Ranch in Okeechobee, Florida. But the big news about this event is it's one of the highest guaranteed prize pools that I've heard about in competition shooting, $150,000.
Yeah, that's the biggest I've ever heard of. There have been a few that hit $50,000 in the past. Yeah, and look, you understand the deal. You're a marketing guy. The only way that you can do this is if the sponsors feel like they're going to get enough exposure out of it. And, if I may go back a ways several decades, is when we, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and your grandfather, my dad, and then I were involved in the Shooting Sports America TV show. It was on ESPN, not ESPN2. And the whole idea was, let's see if we can get it broader market, broader exposure for the shooting sports. Because if you don't have exposure, I mean, it's that old, what did we talk about? What's in it for me, for the sponsors? If they don't have enough eyeballs or whatever, they're not going to be there. So we created that, and that worked well for a while. And then it got pushed off. I guess I would almost toss it back to you and say, okay, what would a shooting event need to have in order to get a lot of eyeballs to make it attractive to a sponsor?
Well, you have a chicken egg scenario, right? Because you have to have enough sponsors and money to attract the really best shooters out there who are going to put on a display of skill that people are like, I got to watch this guy shoot, and especially like a sporting clays tournament. I mean, what you're probably looking at is, are they going to go 100 for 100? Are they going to go into a shoot off? Is this going to be an exciting shoot off? What's the format of it? Some of those types of things.
Right.
And I think that's what really brings in the audience for it. And I'm excited that Jack Links has stepped up to the plate to make this thing possible. And I actually was hearing a story today that I guess Mr. Link is a big shooter, a big hunter, and supporter of this, which is cool. So the beef jerky fortune is helping support this deal.
Well, so he has the ability to say, we're going to do this regardless of what his marketing people say.
Right.
Because they may say, well, look, where's the value in this? Well, which kind of brings it back to us. We, as the shooting community, the gun community, if we like the idea of getting more exposure for, the safe lifetime sports of shooting, maybe we ought to be making sure that Mr. Jack Links gets a lot of feedback of, hey, we really appreciate that. We really love what you're doing. As a result of doing that, I'm switching my diet completely to Jack Link sausages and jerky. I don't know, something like that.
It's the caveman diet. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're right. And that's a great point, is let them know that you appreciate this and support it and watch it, tune in for it if you can, whatever there is a way to support it, because there's, it's great that this guy has the beef jerky money to put into it, but probably he won't do this indefinitely. And he's probably like, hey, I'm going to help get this going, but you guys need to keep it going. And it's interesting. I was talking in a totally different realm the other day about somebody talking about benefactors and in the nonprofit world. And you kind of need those benefactors who are putting in the money, because what we're talking about, we think about this as media and marketing and that kind of thing, where we're delivering a certain number of impressions or eyeballs. And that's why Winchester or Benelli or whoever would sponsor this stuff. But there's the other part of, I'm sponsoring it just because it's important and I want to sponsor it. And that's another angle of supporting the shooting sports and keeping them going. And we have that in a lot of different ways, but it'd be great to have a benefactors to help it.
Well, people who would, if somebody owns a company or somebody frankly has enough money and says, look, I'm going to put $150,000 or I'm going to put $500,000 a year into this kind of thing. Part of the deal is what kind of event. I mean, and you and I are in the business of trying to make shooting appear to be interesting and fun to watch. That's what we do. I mean, that's my history, your history, and all the way back to my dad's history. I remember when we were, for the Shooting Sports America series, covering a World Cup shoot. And you're trying to make this exciting television. And there was a guy, we were watching him, he was shooting, it was either rimfire or air rifle with, a really big rifle, all that. Right. And he would stand there and stand there and stand there and stand there, take a shot, and relax. Then he'd put the gun down, then he'd go over and sit down and look at a newspaper, let his heart rate go back down. And I'm looking at this and going, how do you make good TV out of this? I don't even want to watch it. And I'm standing here, So,
well, Tom, do you think he's reading the obituaries, the personal ads?
Oh, look, he's made it all the way to page 2. Wow.
Ooh, comics, Dilbert. This will really
from that we got action shooting, 3-gun, cowboy action, a lot of these things that became more spectator friendly.
Yes,
more interesting
3-gun. Yeah.
3-gun. And frankly, Sporting Clays is not all that spectator friendly, but with good editing, we were able to do that because it's all happening at the same time at different places. And frankly, we just fudged it and said, oh, look what he's doing. Now, it may have happened 2 hours apart from each other, but you make it sound as though it's interesting, because in all things like a race or anything else, it's what happens at the finish line that makes it interesting.
Yes. Well, Sporting Clays is like a golf tournament, right? They're all out there. They're playing. They're not necessarily facing each other, but it is funny because if you think about different types of sports, basketball, they're literally throwing a ball through a hole. Right. I mean, it's totally arbitrary and weird and has nothing to do with real life at all. Right. And why can't shooting clays, which actually has a little bit more practical application?
It does.
Be something that is a spectator friendly event.
And the other thing you would need, if you're really going to make this go somewhere, is you need celebrities. And in the old days, celebrities would show up for shooting events, and today not so much. So there's that. But I'm glad you brought it up. It's an interesting point, and kudos to Winchester for being involved in this, and also for Jack Links. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's a fun story that's going on right now. Another one, we have some new guns to talk about, but before we do that, I do have a couple sponsors I have to thank for their support of this Gun Talk Nation episode. Hodgdon Powder Company, passion for shooting and hunting, has driven Hodgdon from the beginning. They are shooters, they are hunters. They do black powder substitutes, anti-copper fouling agents, and smokeless powder. They're the largest U.S. supplier of smokeless black powder and black powder substitute propellants. But the big deal is there are a lot of people getting into reloading. Check out the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center. It's the leader in reloading information, hodgdonreloading.com. Also, Savage Arms, they've got a new pistol. It's an EDC handgun, so it's a concealed carry type gun. It's called the Stance. It's a micro compact 9mm, and the Stance uses a chassis that's the serialized component, which gives Savage the flexibility to offer a wide variety of grip frames. Has all the things that you'd expect: aggressive stippling on the texture, interchangeable back straps, and a lot of different options. So check that out at savagearms.com. So Tom, I want to talk about new guns. First one up, in the past week or so, we've got the new SAUER P365 380. Which is the gun that is usually met with the response of, what? Why? Why would you do that? You already had the 365, which is like one of the greatest carry pistols ever created in 9mm. Why do that in a 380? You got to shoot it, and I guess I would say two things. One, recoil. Two, ease of operation of the slide. What else did you see? Well, talk about it. Yeah, I mean, those are the two main ones. The other thing is they were able to lighten the gun a bit. So, I mean, the 365 is already not very heavy, but they actually took it down by several more ounces. And so people go, why would you want that? Why would you want that? It's not for you then. If you don't see a reason, good point, that gun's not designed for you. But guess what? They didn't just arbitrarily say, what the hell, let's just do it in 380. They actually had a lot of people asking for it because why, guys? Let me think. Perhaps the Shield EZ and the Ruger Light Rack LCP, those things are selling like hotcakes for newer shooters, women shooters. When you get into small pistols, 9mm, you got a little bitty small spring to work with. So to move it, it takes a lot of effort to get that slide racked. Those of us who have been doing it a long time, we don't even think about it. We just do it. But somebody who's new to this and going, I can't work the slide. You give them a 380, it's like, woo, wow, that's cool. Yeah. And the reality is, I mean, people say, well, do you really want to carry a 380? No, I would flip that around. Would you rather have a 380 or nothing? Right. You know, in a self-defense situation, 380 is a very good tool to have. Heck yeah, especially if it doesn't recoil a lot. You probably shoot it really well. Right. And 4 or 5 shots to center mass with a 380, it will do the job, guys. It will, I promise. And understanding that doing the job is making the attack stop. What happens after that, I don't care about. I don't care if he survives. I don't care about anything else. All I want is for this attack to stop. And I have found in studying this over the years that people who are being shot don't like that. They tend to not want to continue to be shot. So they tend to go someplace else. So there's that. Which is just perfect. The other thing that I'm seeing a lot of comments about this is, it doesn't even hold more ammo. It went to 380 and doesn't even hold more ammo. Guys, the 380 is a 9mm short. It is not as long, but it is still the exact same diameter. Right. So it doesn't help as far as getting you capacity in the magazine. Although we may get some of these guns starting to be chambered for that new 30 Super Carry, which is a new cartridge, which they can get a couple more rounds in. So we're going to see. I think that round's going to grow in interest, and more gun makers are going to start chambering for it. Yeah. The other one that's new that just came out like this week is the Taurus G3 XL. And I shot this gun. I mean, here's the deal. What's interesting about Taurus over the last several years, and we've been kind of through this journey with Taurus, and people will have opinions about it. I really do believe that the Taurus of the last couple of years is not the Taurus of old. Well, just as the company today, the Taurus is not the same as the Taurus company of old. Right. So they aren't. There's no guns being made in Miami. And this gun, at least, is being made in Bainbridge, Georgia, which is their U.S. headquarters now. And you've been there, right? I've been there. It's a fantastic facility. It's brand new, and I've I mean, I'm not doing like ridiculous 15,000 round tests with this, but I've shot, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, 10 different Taurus guns and probably several hundred rounds through these guns in the past couple of years with no problems. People are like, oh, Taurus is not very good. I've had no problems. And also, I'll add this to it. It is the fit and finish and feel is what it's supposed to be. It's better. It's not as blocky, chunky, whatever. It's just in the same line as all the other stuff out there.
And that's not something we would have said 20 years ago. It was a whole different company. That's what I'm saying.
Actually, I discovered an old Taurus that you gave me, that 45. It's a semi-auto.
I remember that one.
I think maybe it was a 24/7. I'm not sure.
Did you figure out why I gave it to you?
Oh, it's horrible. It's the worst. It's got a thumb safety, which I'm not a big thumb safety guy. And it's in 45, and it's just.
Well, and that's why a lot of people have the opinion they do. They're working off of a 10 or 20-year-old opinion formed a Taurus, and they haven't looked at him the last couple of years. Yeah. What's that old line says? This is not your grandfather's Chevrolet. Well, this is not your daddy's Taurus. Exactly. Now, there's something they've got in this pistol I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned in the video, and I would encourage people to go look at it. This whole second strike capability.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
It doesn't sound like much, but when you start kind of running it through your head, what it does, it's a striker-fired gun, but with most striker-fired guns, you pull the trigger. If it goes click, you got to rack the slide and get it going again.
You have to reset the striker.
Right. This was kind of like a double-action revolver. You can just keep pulling it, and it goes click, click, click. It'll go bang. Generally speaking, in the middle of a run on targets or in the middle of a self-defense situation, if your gun goes click, you're not going to go tap, rack, do all the thing. You're just going to go click, and you're going to try to pull it again.
Yeah, at least once more.
At least once more, maybe 12 times more. Who knows, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
There is a chance that you had a bad primer, light primer strike, maybe a little crud in the gun, maybe something. And there's a real chance that the second time you pull the trigger, it goes off. And so this gives you arguably the quickest second shot possibility in the case of a click.
And I may have skipped over this. I said there's a new Taurus. It's the G3 XL. And it's basically kind of an extension of the G3 lineup. But this one is a full-size slide.
Slides longer, 4-inch barrel. But the grip is still short.
The grip is a compact grip. It's a 12-round magazine. It's a double-stack magazine to give you a kind of an idea of what that size is. So it's... And somebody actually commented on one of our video about this, was like, who would have thought that Taurus would be the one to bring out the long slide with the shorter grip, which is actually probably what most concealed carry people would like.
Well, those who know, because the reality is most of the ways we're carrying concealed guns, a lot of inside the waistband, appendix style, the length of the barrel, if you added another ½ inch or an inch of the barrel, it's inconsequential. It's hidden. But that longer butt, you know, as the grip gets longer, it sticks out and it has more of a tendency to print if you've got a cover garment on. And if you can shorten that grip, you really do improve the carryability and the concealability of it.
Yeah, it does. So that's another new one out there. We have a couple more sponsors to thank. Springfield Armory. Their new Springfield Armory Hellion 5.56. It's based on the VHS2 bullpup platform. It's a fully ambi gun. You can even reverse the ejection port from left to right. So sometimes for those of us who shoot from the left shoulder, like me and you, Tom, bullpups sometimes just don't work because they're going to inject brass into your face. Right. But this will actually, you can switch to the other side and you can switch all the controls are ambi. So pretty cool gun. Springfield-armory.com, and then Vortex Optics, and new from Vortex, the Razor HD Gen 3 6-36 by 56 long-range tactical shooting scope with the LTEC plus zero system to make zeroing in quick and simple. Micro 6x magnifier takes your red dot further. That's another product that they just, a 6x magnifier for your red dot system, offering 3 mounting heights, fog-proof, waterproof, shock-proof. VortexOptics.com is where you go to find out more information on those.
Speaking of that, didn't know if you saw the news. Vortex just put out a release. We're going to combine sponsorship with a news deal that they got a contract with U.S. military for up to 250,000 high-end optics, and it's like a crazy scope, red dot, laser rangefinder, ballistic calculator, changes the reticle, does all this interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a 10-year, I think it's a 10-year contract with up to 250,000 over the whole deal, and they're made in America. So that's
I saw that.
Too.
So that's pretty cool. So in other news, we've got some interesting news stories this week. One of them, go figure, it's out of California. The California Attorney General sends a cease and desist letter to firearms manufacturer Juggernaut Tactical because they have a featureless rifle.
So if you're going to outlaw
I feel bad for our brothers and sisters in California that they have to get really creative on these guns.
Well, California keeps adding features that you can't have on your gun. They say, okay, we'll just take all the features off. We won't have any. This is the newest part of an old story. And let me pick this up because it's really interesting. In California, and frankly, if you go back to the 1994 federal quote unquote assault weapons ban, the Bill Clinton assault weapons ban, they have a list of features. And your rifle can't have these features. If it does, it's banned. So people said, okay, we'll take the features off. For instance, if it had a flash suppressor, they said, okay, we'll just take that off, and now it doesn't have a flash suppressor, now it's legal. And so the gun makers were complying with the law. But the gun ban people said, no, you're trying to avoid the law. You're trying to get around the law. I said, no, this is what's called complying with the law. This gun, according to your definition, is completely legal. I said, well, we don't want it to be. Said, well, you didn't write the law that way. I understand you want them all to go away. I mean, at its core, right? I mean, that's what's going on in California, right? So that's what's going on here. We've got a company that said, okay, you wrote the laws this way. We're going to make a gun that meets all the criteria and is not banned. And the AG says, but that's not what we wanted to do. In other words, we forgot to write the law to outlaw everything because we didn't think we could get away with that.
Right.
But we don't like the fact that you're actually complying with the law and now you can make a gun. We don't like that at all.
The funny part about this is at issue are pistol grips. So it's basically, it's an AR-15 or an AR-15 style gun. And California doesn't like pistol grips for some reason. I don't know what about a pistol grip makes a gun bad, dangerous, scary, whatever.
It makes it scary looking. Yes.
It makes it scary. So they've figured out a way where, and this is the funny part that California made the mistake on. They defined pistol grips. So now you're like, oh, okay. I mean, it's just like NASCAR. I mean, if NASCAR says, hey, stock car has to be this and this and this, it can't be lower than 3 inches above the ground or whatever, you go, okay, so I'll go to 3 inches then.
Yeah.
I mean,
whatever.
I'll play by the rules you gave me.
Right.
And they go, we don't like that.
Well, but that's okay. So what you got here is the California AG, they're not passing another law. They're just saying, even though you're complying with the law, we're going to send you a legal order to cease and desist, to stop, I guess, basically until we can figure out a way to ban that kind of gun as well. So, I mean, this will play out in the courts. And really the only question is Juggernaut Tactical going to have the money to go fight the AG who's using taxpayer dollars?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we end up.
Man, that's a tough one. I like the creativity though of some of these companies that come up with the bullet button and all these different things.
Gun makers have been tinkerers from the very beginning. I mean, originally the way we got lock, stock, and barrel as a phrase is the original guns were being made by watchmakers using the lock was so intricate they would be made by watchmakers. So, you try to pass a law to outlaw them. Well, look at what's going on now with personally made guns and 3D printers and all of that. Completely legal, but now they want to put a name on it and scare everybody. Ghost gun, scary. And now all of a sudden it's supposed to be bad. No, it's actually perfectly legal to do that, to make your own guns.
It is.
We're going to be picking that up on the radio show soon too.
And just for what it's worth, I've seen some of these home built gun events and competitions and stuff, they don't really run that well. I promise. Like Smith & Wesson knows how to make better guns. Like the ghost gun thing is not a real problem because when they can't even get the gun to feed because they 3D printed it, I mean.
Yeah, no, it is exactly. But I know some people want to build their own. Well, people have been making their own in the basement with lathes and milling machines. It's just more involved, but you could do that if you know what you're doing. Not me. I go to the store and I get them.
Yeah. So this story, here's another story that's in the news right now. It's making the rounds. AR-15 designed for kids, triggering the gun control crowd.
Oh, God. It triggered them. They lost their minds. This company brought out a little miniature single shot. That's the important part. A single shot 22 rifle. It comes with a magazine that holds one cartridge. All right. And it's a miniature. It's like a 20% smaller AR.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect for kids, teaching them how to shoot, safety training. But the fact that it looked scary, it looked like an AR, the gun ban crowd lost their minds. And I mean, I think it's called the JR-15, like
JR-15, like junior, long rifle inspired by the AR-15. It's under 2.5 pounds. It's 20% smaller than the standard version. WE1 Tactical, WEE1 Tactical. Functions like a modern sporting rifle, but it's lightweight, rugged polymer construction, ergonomics. They do know that like there are youth guns. Youth guns have existed for a really long time, right?
Yeah, but they hate that because they say, well, you're just enticing children to use guns. You go, yes, because that's a lifetime sport, a safe sport, it's a wholesome sport, it's a family sport, and we've been doing it for hundreds of years. But they do hate the idea that you would have this as a way of children to get into the gun culture.
Right. And it's in 22. It's a 22 long rifle.
Oh, I don't know if you saw it. I had this long ongoing back and forth on Twitter with somebody popped in losing their mind about it. They said, well, you could just take that 22 and rechamber it for 223. All you have to do is take that little 22 rimfire and you can rechamber it and make it a full auto 223. I'm telling you, this is what they're saying. And this person's saying, you keep talking to me as though I don't know anything about guns. I know guns. I'm going, well, actually, no, you don't.
Sounds like you don't. Yeah. Why are people so reluctant to just say, look, I don't know much about guns, but they scare me and I don't like them. Just say, I don't know.
That would be honest, wouldn't it?
That would be honest. But yeah, it reminds me of, wait a minute, the M&P 1522 from Smith & Wesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 22.
This is a great rifle.
AR-15.
Yes.
The stock is adjustable.
Yeah, so it can fit smaller people. It's lighter and it's easy to use. And okay, yes, it looks cool. I mean, and that's one of the things we like about guns. We like cool looking guns. Sometimes it's a real classic wood stock rifle, and sometimes it's something that looks like an AR. But, for a youngster, and look, you got 2 daughters and they both shot that rifle.
Right. And so what's funny is when we started shooting BB guns, I started out with like super simple Daisy BB gun, like not even a Red Ryder. It was like that. And they shot a few shots that. And then when they got just a little bit bigger, a little bit older, I had this pellet gun that looks exactly like a SIG MCX.
Right. Yes.
It is tricked out. And I'm like, which one do you want to shoot? You want to shoot the Daisy, Red Ryder looking one, or this MCX one? I wasn't baiting them or anything. I was just like, hey, I've got these 2 guns. And they're like, ooh, that one. They want to shoot the one that looks cool and looks modern. Sure. With Red Ryder, it was kids watching Westerns.
Exactly right.
And now kids don't watch Westerns.
No, they watch action movies and things like that.
Movies.
So this is the gun they see on TV and in movies. So same deal. We were watching John Wayne and going with the lever action, the Red Ryder. You're right. It's exactly the same thing. So
thinking about getting kids into shooting, the shooting culture, and going to go full circle here with a call back to the Sporting Clays tournament. When they're putting on they already have 750 shooters that are registered for the Jack Links Cup down there in Florida. they need trappers. And it was kind of a general call to the sport needs more trappers.
Okay.
Because we need to teach people.
Trappers are people who actually run the buttons, and when you call pull, they push the button and the target comes out. Okay.
Because there's a lot of discussion about trappers, and you need, it doesn't take an enormous amount of skill, but it does take a certain level of skill and expectation of when the shooter calls pull and what you're going to do. And also they're watching all these clays all day and all this stuff. So it was just one of the things that was being encouraged is we got to get more trappers and maybe perhaps more youth as a way to get them into shooting and participating. And heck, they'll pay you. You can earn money.
Really? So they're looking for that right now. Okay. Well,
I think it was that tournament. Yeah, I mean, for that tournament, we're talking about that. But I think in general, there's just a shortage of trappers around the country. When you put on a big shooting tournament, a big sporting clays tournament, you're like, we got to get people to throw.
It takes a lot of people. And there are so many young people who are shooting trap these days, trap and skeet, sporting clays, that I would think you might even be able to tap into some of those if they're not shooting. They know the game, they know the sport, and they could come out and do that. It also would be a great way to mentor people, to bring them in and let me go along with me. You could actually have a trapper mentor program to bring young people in, have them go along with you and see how it's done. But yeah, you're right. You have to be focused. You have to pay attention. They don't like it if you get a slow pull. When you call pull, you got to get it right off the bat.
Yeah, there's a certain expectation. Pull.
No good. Yeah, right.
I need another bird. That one.
You got to put your phone down. You got to pay attention.
Especially if there's 50 grand riding on this.
No kidding. That's for sure. So that's pretty interesting. One thing I wanted to mention, if you got time, is I'm seeing a really renewed or increased interest in reloading. And I've been trying to figure out why. What's going on with that? And I think I have a theory. Reloading for just mass loading, like making gazillions of 9mm, that's kind of boring. That's production stuff. But what I'm seeing is a lot of interest in reloading rifle ammo and making it really accurate, which is something we used to do 30, 40 years ago when factory ammo wasn't very good. Well, now factory ammo is very good. So you wonder, what's this all about? Well, factory ammo is very good for hunting. And you could get 1/2 inch, 2 inch groups. But if you're shooting at 1,000 yards, that may not be good enough. If you're trying to shoot 4 or 5 inch groups at 1,000 yards,
right,
you probably have to hand load for that specific rifle and tailor the loads. My theory is that this interest in long range shooting now and competition has driven increased interest in reloading, hand loading. People are having custom made rifles now, and they're barreling them, they're doing all these different things. And as a result, we just have an awful lot of interest on the part of, the mainline component makers like Hodgdon and all the bullet makers. But also you got like small bullet makers that have popped up. Berger's no longer small, of course. They're a large company, but others like that. So it's just very interesting to watch what's going on. And I think we're seeing more product on the market now, more components. More powder. You mentioned Hodgdon earlier. They're cranking out more powder. I mean, it could be a little hard to find, but you can find, you may have to switch to a different powder than your favorite, but you could find something that'll go bang out there.
Yeah, you got to be flexible on the component side, but it's just another way. If you're having a hard time finding ammo, make your own ammo as well. I think people are just kind of being more flexible in the expectations of buying the products. And that probably goes even beyond the gun world, right? Of just being able to find certain things. It's fun to have more people involved in that aspect of shooting, because it's certainly a way to also understand your gun and your ammo and all that a little bit more, because you can, like, well, let's go chrono it. Let's go load different types of loads and different types of bullets. And what is this gun like?
Well, it's actually, when you think about it, it's another conduit to being much more involved with shooting, because now you're thinking about shooting when you're looking up your loads, when you're making your loads, when you're at the range, you get to shoot more, you get to chrono, you're doing these ladder tests, which is kind of a new thing. You're doing all this very involved reading and studying about all this, and information's available everywhere. So you don't have to be just out there shooting. You could be doing all these other things that expands the amount of time or your involvement in the shooting sports. And if you like this, you go, well, this is great. Now I'm spending 3 or 4 times as much time doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. So what's coming up for you on Gun Talk Radio? What you got cooking?
Oh, let's see. This week we're going to have, let's see, I think we're trying to get, I think we're going to get Ryan Kleckner talking about long range shooting, sniper firearms instructor. Interesting thing he told me, I'll go ahead and give this away. When we were at SHOT Show, I saw him. And this is a guy who can hit targets at a long, long distance, right? But he likes to hunt. And he said, well, you're not going to talk about long range hunting. I said, no, that's not really my thing. He says, not my thing either. Then he had this great line. He says, I figure if your biggest risk is in missing the target, then you're target shooting. If your biggest risk is in spooking the target, then you're hunting.
Ooh.
Oh, isn't that good?
I
like that.
I like it.
So we're going to have him. We're going to have a guy that created his own little small and now not so small leather holster company. They could talk about leather holsters. I mean, it seems like it's old school, but they're popular. And of course, we're always looking for people to call in with their range reports and tell us what they've been shooting, what they're buying, and sometimes crying about the guns they shouldn't have sold.
It's always fun. Tom, thanks for being with us today. We covered the waterfront, I think, and everybody can tune in to listen to you on Gun Talk Radio each week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, that's it for us. We will see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.